Hello, this is Simon Brew. I'm the editor of Film Stories magazine, and a very warm welcome to a very special episode of the Film Stories podcast.
Come with me.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And movies that had stories.
That the story just sucks them in.
This is just the beginning.
Stories. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Film Stories with Simon Brew. I am Simon Brew. As always, that's absolutely everything you need to know about me. The aim of the podcast, though, well, it's given away in the title. I'm here to talk of the stories of films, and I tend to talk about development stories, production stories, release stories, marketing stories, all the ingredients, really, that go towards making the films that we know and sometimes love, just that, the films that we know and sometimes love. The films I tend to cover on this podcast lean more towards the mainstream than anything else. They're films I'm interested in or invested in to some degree. I try not to do snark. I try not to punch down. This podcast is a celebration of cinema and a real appreciation that somehow films manage to get made. What you've happened upon here is one of my occasional special episodes of the podcast, though, where I bring in a filmmaker to talk about their body of work or their latest release. And in this case, I'm delighted to welcome back for a third appearance to this podcast to writer and director Paul Feig. He's got his director hat on for the project we're going to be talking about, which is his brand new film, Jackpot, which is landing on the Prime Video service around the world at the point this is being released. It stars Awkwafina and John Cena, and I had a long chat with Paul Feig about the film and about what he's been up to, which you can hear after this clip from Jackpot.
So why are you here? Are you here for pleasure or pain or...
No, I'm an actress. Great. They're rebooting Barbie. Hi, I'm Katie. Just got back into town and ready to act.
Did you prepare something?
I have something, yeah.
Katie Kim is our new Jackpot winner. Happy hunting, L.A.
I definitely didn't get the part, so there's no need for the death stare.
She's my Jackpot.
What is happening?
Uber for Katie? Did that look as cool as it felt?
So that was a clip from Jackpot. And returning to the Film Stories podcast, and I think this is appearance number 3, 4 times you become co-host, is nice. The director of Jackpot. It's Paul Feig. Hello, Paul Feig. Welcome back.
Hello, Simon. How are you? I'm so happy to be back. Film Stories is the greatest. I love Film Stories.
Just say that again so I can edit it nicely and just take it entirely out of context. That would be perfect.
Hi, I'm Paul Feig. I love Film Stories, and I owe Simon Brew millions of dollars.
Jesus, that's great. Right, I'm off. That's terrific. I've interviewed you so many times over the years, and I've never got to the bottom of this. It's always been the last question on my list. On your Wikipedia page, so it's bound to be true, right?
Oh boy, yeah, exactly.
It's bound to be true. You are Oscar audience member in Naked Gun 33 1/3.
That is true, son.
Put this scurrilous rumor to bed, please, because there's no way you could have been an extra just years after taking on the role of Stanley in Ski Patrol.
Well, there you go.
A named part to being in the crowd of a Naked Gun film. Were you in the crowd of a Naked Gun film?
I was. It's the downward spiral of my acting career. No, actually, I'll tell you exactly what happened. My good friend Pete Siegel directed that movie.
Yeah. He's just the My Spy sequel, hasn't he?
Yeah, totally. And he's a great guy. I mean, I've known him literally forever. And he made that whole movie, and then they were in the edit, and they realized they were missing reaction shots during the Oscar scene. And so he's like, "Will you come in?" And so myself and my friend Joel Madison, who's a great writer, comedic writer, are the two guys sitting there, and then they put some extras around us, and it's just like, okay, look disgusted. Okay, now put your head in your hands. Okay, now look shocked. And
so you didn't even get to watch Leslie Nielsen tit around or anything like that.
No, I didn't get to meet anybody. I just literally just Joel and I sitting with some extras in the middle of I think the Shrine Auditorium.
The glamour of your life.
Exactly. But I had a long acting career, and yet
Of course.
the only thing people would knew me for, they were like, "You were in that thing."
No. The extended version of that thing you do, the radio DJ. That's your star role.
Exactly. No, I'm in the main cut, Simon.
I understand that, but there's more of you in the longer one, isn't there? I think we get.
I don't know. Possibly.
There you go, Sam. There you go.
Do we Zack Snyder it? And I
we're going
have a whole other thing going.
Is that a verb now to Zack Snyder something?
I've just coined it.
That's amazing. I will ask you if you're going to Zack Snyder Jackpot shortly. I've just been reading a New York Times interview you gave in 2008, which is a really interesting point in your career, because The Office was going great guns, but people were, even though you were right at the heart of the creative engine room of that, you weren't getting the direct credit for it. You were 3 years off Bridesmaids being released at that point. And so the New York Times describes you driving a Mini Cooper to Comic-Con, where you were going to sign copies of Ignatius McFarland, Frequenaut. And it talked then about how in your brain you had 9 projects on the go. There's a mix of films, it says, a young adult book series. There was something called 3 Wishes for a Fat Guy, which was an idea you had. And you had all of this stuff on the stove. And I contrast that with now. And the fact that even as we're talking, you're about to release a film, you've got one in post-production, you've got one effectively in pre-production. In terms of the difference of that 16-year period, I mean, is your head much different? Is it always percolating with the same level of idea? It's just opportunity has opened up to realize more of those.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always scheming and trying to figure out stories. You walk around just always waiting for inspiration, in whether it's going to come from inside you or it's going to come from something you see and you put together of like there's something in the air. Everything, things are in the zeitgeist, and it's so odd. And I'm always like trying to trace where ideas came from, and a lot of times you can trace it to like a news story that everybody heard or something that happened, in real life that people then interpreted into something. And so, because you want that thing that's going to create a commercial film that is. People are going to see the trailer for and say, "Oh, that looks like something I need to see. That's an idea that sounds cool," and not something like, "Okay, I've seen that idea a million times before." So I think I'm always trying to figure it out. But there also it's funny, like there's a lot of from that article, which was really cool. I mean, it's
really kind of interesting piece. Yeah,
point in my career where I was happy because I was directing TV, but I was also very unsatisfied because I wasn't doing movies like I wanted to do and doing my own ideas. Yeah. And there's a lot of projects from then that I could carry forward to now, but I also am very suspect about dream projects because I've seen dream projects hurt directors because you get like once you kind of get on the road to where you're doing better, you're actually getting to make things. I think it's really dangerous to go back and go, now I want to go back to this thing that I had and pull it forward. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means you got to put that through a much, much tighter filter to say, is this still relevant? Is this at the level of what I should be doing now?
But when you get to say, I don't know, the end of your 70s, early 80s, and say you've got a bit of money in the bank, are you not going to hit a sodic point? Because we've seen that with like Kevin Costner with Horizon at the moment. We're seeing it with Francis Ford Coppola with Megalopolis, where no matter what anyone else thinks, I just want to tell that story. And you've always been able to do that with books. You've talked about it in the past, but the audience isn't there. But you get to a point where with movies that there's going to be a window where there's one purely for you, isn't there?
I don't know. I'm very suspicious of those projects because I only want to do things that entertain an audience. I think as a filmmaker, if your first and foremost goal is not to entertain an audience, then I'm not quite sure what you're doing. Yeah, I get that you have an artistic vision you want to get across. You want to give somebody like a bitter pill to swallow. Yeah, I'm not interested in doing that because I think I've done it already. I mean, the first feature film I did was I Am David. Yes, which bombed horrendously bombed. I mean, there's tanking and then there's just cratering and creating a black hole in space, and then that's what that movie did. And that was the one I looked at of like, oh, this will be kind of my award movie. You know, I really liked the script, and I was the book that was, and then I wrote the script, but I was dedicated to the story, thinking it could be really good. And I did think it would entertain an audience, but that wasn't my first and foremost motivation. It was also, oh, this is kind of classy, and I think this could be a real awards play on top of being something good. And it wasn't anything that anybody really wanted to see, you know.
I still want to know what your 4-hour Western's going to look like. I think that's what I'm going to take away.
So, it won't. That's why
it will be short and be 90 minutes by the time.
I don't have the conscience to make a movie much past 2 hours. I can't. It's against my religion.
Well, oddly enough, the last time I talked to you was just as you were releasing your longest movie, School for Good and Evil. So we chatted at the end of 2022, and you said something along those lines about there was this script about you wanted to go back to your R-rated comedy roots. To quote you, a shitload of stunts. It's the Jackie Chan movie I've been dying to make, which is now a quote you've given to everyone else. So any exclusivity I had on that has completely.
I'm so sorry.
Well, it's hurtful, but we can move on. So can you take the story from the release of The School for Good and Evil to Jackpot jumping the queue over A Simple Favor 2?
Yeah. Was Simple Favor 2 was kind of percolating, but we were still kind of trying to get it right. We had a script that the studio had basically greenlit, but weren't sure if it was right yet.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my terror of making something that isn't going, that I have a feeling isn't going to work is you know, it causes sleepless nights, especially when it's something that somebody wants.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of in the middle of all this angst over that this script just dropped into my lap.
Yeah.
You know, called Grand Theft Lotto at the time.
Yes.
And I was just like, this is everything I want to make right now. You know, because School for Good and Evil, I really had fun making that, but that was a lot of fan service, you know, for the book readers on that. You know, and then coming off of before that Last Christmas, which I loved, which was so much fun to make too, but it was, you know, there was no stunts or action in it, you know, and I love that kind of stuff. And I was just looking to just go back to just something like Spy and The Heat, you know, that was just a big comedy.
Yeah.
But I needed to find a idea that was really sticky, as we say in the business. You know, it's I didn't make that term up. It's
I'm going to edit around this perfectly. Don't worry.
The douchey showbiz terminology that we have. And it checked every box for me. And so I would just like John Cena and Aquafina were attached and it fit into their schedule. So I was like, let's just go. We'll make the other one after that.
Well, there's a screenwriter as well, Rob Yescombe, who comes from my neck of the woods, the West Midlands here in the UK, proper glamorous part of the world, which I'm sure you frequent once you finish with Los Angeles.
Always.
Of course. But I spoke to Rob Yescombe, who says hello to you, but he talked about how you were really open to having the writer on the set. As well. Now, the reason I ask this question is not because that's unusual to you, but it's relatively unusual to the film business. And I think you've been on, you've seen that firsthand a couple of times, I think. Mm-hmm. What's the benefit to you of bringing a writer on set like that and someone like Rob? And what was it about Rob's script that particularly got you, apart from a clear shared love of Jackie Chan?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to answer your first question, I think it's crazy not to have the writer on the set. The only time you don't want the writer on the set is if they become so enamored with their words that you're like, you can't change it. And then you're like, okay, well, now you can't be here because you can't be destructive to the process. But they all know the story so well because it came from their mind. And I want them there to like go like, oh, I have an idea. Like, what about this? What about that? You know, and it's at that point, we're not changing the story or anything, but it's just about like lines of dialogue, you know, or jokes and that kind of thing. And so if somebody there and they're going to be additive and they're going to like suddenly have an idea for a joke and hand me something written down or say something to me that I go like, that's really funny. Why would I not have that on? It's only going to benefit my movie. So I think it is madness not to have the writers on. And then as far as what attracted me to it, I just, you know, you make these comedies, and but you need to hang them on something. It's very hard to pull off just a comedy about like a relationship comedy or something. It can be done, but it's usually in a bigger context. There's usually some bigger context around it, like Fly Me to the Moon or that kind of thing. It's a love story, but it's in the middle of this bigger thing. And I think that's what you need, because for an audience, if you just go, it's just a love story, it's got to be something really, the people that they love, and it looks really cool, but you want to have a sticky idea. There it is. There's that word again.
Yeah. We're all getting the same takeaway from this, don't we?
Yeah. And so I just thought this was such a catalyst for fun and mayhem, craziness, but also there was kind of a core idea in the middle of that's you're like, oh wow, that's interesting. That there could be this lottery where if you win, everybody else with a losing ticket can kill you legally by the end of the day. It's the Purge, but the fun version of the Purge, and the biggest thing that made me want to do this outside of the idea was that Rob put into the script that the only rule of the lottery is you can't use guns. And that changed everything for me. Because if it was gunplay, it would be ridiculous. I mean, first of all, there'd be no realism. Somebody could shoot you from anywhere. But the fact that it's going to be hand to hand, you got to be in somebody's face doing this. That's classic Jackie Chan. It's classic Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, and then that's catnip to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well. You're saying about there've got to be something in the midst of it. I mean, I watched The Fall Guy this year, and The Fall Guy, I just think, is as good a rom-com I've seen in a long time. It's just no one calls it a rom-com, but they clearly worked to put something substantive at the heart of that. It sounds like you found the same with this as well.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you touched on there. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this. Actually, you touched on there the change of title. Was there legal shenanigans in there somewhere? I mean, just
of course there were.
Okay, did you get your backside sued off the back of the original title?
I'll tell you the exact story. It was when it was sent to me. I was told that the title had been cleared, so I was like, "Oh, great!" Because this is such a funny title, And we got way down the road, and we're in post, and suddenly I'm getting calls from the legal department, like, the people at Grand Theft Auto are going to sue us. And like, well, wait, what? First of all, I don't know how you copyright a legal term. I mean, Grand Theft Auto is a term that the police use. So I'm sorry. Like,
it's an old film as well, isn't it? If we're going to
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's right. Yeah, because Ron Howard should sue me.
Yeah.
So
there's my next clickbait. Ron Howard should sue Grand Theft Auto.
There you go.
You are just serving this up a treat. Thank you very much.
Giving you so much material.
You are an absolute gift today. This is wonderful. You said a bit. Go on.
But then to continue the story. So then when that happened, I was angry about it. But I was like, okay, well, let's change it to Grand Death Lotto. That's even more fun. And we're like, oh, cool. Then it comes back. No, they're still going to sue you for that because it sounds too close. So I was like, two of the words aren't the same words.
Well, could you change like the first word to Randy or something like that? Actually, that has different connotations, doesn't it? Ignore there's a reason you're doing your work and I do mine.
That's the porn remake of my movie, exactly.
Actually, I might register that. That's quite good.
I think you should. I think you should. No, so then everybody wanted to give in to them, and I was like, no, forget it. So, but I just, look, I'm sorry, but Grand Theft Auto is not like. I'm sorry, am I going to ruin their reputation? Really? Are they like this fine, upstanding, family-friendly game?
Yes, you are clearly the problem in the midst of all these. I think so.
But I will say, I actually like the title Jackpot.
No.
But as soon as I can as long as I can add the exclamation point at the end, that was
which you have. That I have. Exactly. You also said something before I didn't quite realize that this was cast before you got to it, that you had Awkwafina and John Cena in there. Has that happened to you before? If we go down like every film since Bridesmaid, has there been like a lead cast in place? The first time you've inherited one?
The only other time it happened was on The Heat, because Sandra Bullock was already kind of attached to it, loosely attached to it. But no, otherwise it's usually, like Simple Favor. I'd been told out of the gate that Blake Lively had expressed interest in playing the role of Emily. So I've had them floating around, but this is the first time I've had where they're actually been physically attached to it. And Rob Yescombe had already done a pass to make the script more in Awkwafina's voice. So then when I read it, I was just like, oh my God, this is like, it's so I could just hear her doing it. So it was nice to have that, and that just helped this runaway freight train hit the tracks even faster.
Well, even by your standards, as someone who was regularly turning around, I mean, you went through a whole period where you were coming straight off one film and onto another. This one seemed fast to me. This is what did Spielberg do in the midst of Ready Player One? The Post, where he managed to put a whole film in the midst of the production of that, because we were sat waiting for A Simple Favor 2, which you've now shot, of course. But was the speed of it, is the fact that it's ready a little part of the appeal as well?
That is the thing I seek out more in my career than anything. I look for these. I call them runaway freight trains. Like, where is the one? Like, it's coming. It's good. It's in really great shape. Now I can go in and do my stuff to it to make it even in better shape, hopefully, and then blast into it. And where there's not all this time to overthink everything from the studio point of view. Because the longer you're in the development, the more people get used to something. Oh, well, what about this? What do we? And you're like, no, look, it's ready to go. Let's just do it. So yeah, something like this saves everybody from themselves, basically.
I love that. You're being asked lots of questions about the brilliant Awkwafina and John Cena. Can I go a little bit further down the credits? Can I ask about Laura Fisher?
Yes.
Who I don't think we've spoken about much before, but she's clearly pivotal to your work. And as I understand it, she discovered this project for you. Can you tell me a little bit more about her and where she fits into your working life?
Yeah, I mean, Laura's great. I first met Laura when I was doing my series Other Space that we did for Yahoo Screen, and she was an executive at Yahoo, was put onto our project. And we just really liked her. That's when Jesse Henderson was my running my company with me and my producing partner, who everything from The Heat all the way to Last Christmas. And so when we started our digital arm of our company, Powder Keg, we were kind of like, who's going to run it? And it's like, oh, remember Laura? We loved her from Yahoo. And so we brought her over and she started running Powder Keg for us. And then Jesse, right after Last Christmas, took a job over at the time at Max. Then she went over to Apple Films, and now she's running Ryan Gosling's company. But so when she left, I was just like, who am I going to get? Who's going to be my producing partner? And I was having lunch with Donna Langley, and I was saying, I'm not sure who to hire. And then I started talking about the digital company. She goes like, well, that Laura sounds great. Why don't you hire her? And I was like, I never thought of that. Yeah. And brought Laura on, and she had never produced a feature film before, but she got thrown into the middle of the School for Good and Evil, which is a massive production in the middle of COVID in Belfast, and just crushed it. And she's so good at her job, and so people love her, and she's just so organized, and she's got great taste. So we had done that movie with Roth Kirsch, RK, and they had that script for Grand Theft Auto, and when it was first given to me, I went I saw the title. I said, that sounds so stupid. I'm not going to read it.
They're bound to sue. They're bound to sue. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I put it on the pile, and it was like a few days later, she called up. She goes like, I just read that script. I think you should read it. It's really funny. And that's when we got 40 pages in and called her back and said like, I don't even know how this ends. I got to do this. This is hilarious.
So you mentioned another Brit in the midst there, Donna Langley. Head of Universal. So I'm just explaining to those who don't know who she is, and also name checking the fact that another Brit has proven pivotal to your career.
There is. I'm so indebted to the Brits.
There you go. So you shot this in Atlanta, where you've not been for the first time, and you've shot you've shot around the world now. Mm-hmm. But how was going there? Because I remember we had a brief exchange just as you were starting about how you were getting used to going to a new city again and working around there. And could you apply things like French hours and things, or all the principles that you brought through the last decade of filmmaking?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the problem is that a lot of directors of late have ruined French hours for those of us who do it and do it correctly, because what they would do, for your audience who doesn't know, French hours is also called continuous hours, and normal filming day is 12 hours with a 1 hour lunch in the middle, and then you can do overtime if you go past that. French hours are you do 10 hours straight, no lunch. They pass food around all day so people can graze. And then at the end of 10 hours, you pull the plug and you got to be done. And so I've been doing that since Spy.
Why, wasn't it? Yeah.
But what happened is a lot of directors have just done 15, 16-hour days with no lunch, so it's terrible for the crew. So the unions came out and said, you can't do French hours anymore. You can only do them like 2 to 3 days a week. But we were able to do it. I just can't work more than 10 or 11 hours. I'm just too lazy. And my brain shuts down. Especially when we're doing comedy, we're coming up with all this stuff all the time. We were able to finagle it where we could do the days we did, and then the days when we had to do lunches, we were able to do kind of rolling lunches and still keep working while we broke different people, so we could still keep to those hours. And it's just better for everybody because people get to get a full night's sleep. They got to see their families, got to put their kids to bed, and you don't wear out the actors, you don't wear out the director.
And so in lieu of me coming up with a really interesting question, can you tell me an interesting story from the actual shoot of Jackpot, this action-filled comedy that you've not told anyone else that I can pass on as my own for the rest of all time?
Boy, that's a tough one. what
the answer is just basically no.
It pretty much is no. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I mean, it was a really intensive shoot because it was only 40 days, and the amount of action you've seen, how much action is in it?
Yes, there's a lot of action.
A lot of action, but I mean, getting my stunt team was a real gift because we had a different stunt coordinator who was starting it when we were developing, and then he had to drop out. And we were really in a panic because it was getting close to the time to shoot the movie. And we had to invent all this action. I mean, Rob had scripted out a bunch of the action, but still, scripting it and actually making it happen are two things. And we heard about, we auditioned a bunch of people, talked to a bunch of people, but then found out James Young was just finishing up the Russo brothers' Electric State in Atlanta.
Right.
Literally finishing it right when we needed him to start. So he's like, not only do I want to do this because I'm a Jackie Chan nut and I want to do funny action, I've got my entire stunt team down here already, ready to go. So it was this seamless kind of going in. They were all set up with their facility where they rehearsed and everything, had all the people there. And so it was kind of this magical thing where it was total kismet that it was meant to be because James came in with such energy and so understood. We were so in sync comedically with what we wanted to do with the physical comedy. So I haven't told that story.
Oh, there you go. I'm having that. But how does that affect your schedule then when you're when you've only got 40 days on such a physical film and your stunt coordinators coming in relatively last minute?
Well, they had enough time to organize. I mean, we knew the order we were going to shoot stuff in. So, the big dojo yoga fight was going to be up first. And so they went in.
That was, whoa. That was first.
Yeah, that was the first thing. Yeah, first thing we shot for action sequence we shot, believe it or not. So they were able to had a few weeks to choreograph that, and and then I would go in and they would tape it and all, and we would kind of built it that way. And then while we were shooting everything else, other parts of the stunt team or James would go back and keep choreographing the other things. So we were just kind of pushing it all down the line as the train was already rolling down the tracks.
So I spoke to you just after you made Spy, and you were really wide-eyed about the fact you got to do action for the first time on Spy. You got to see firsthand what that looked like physically on one of your sets. Can you contrast Jackpot versus Spy, that 8-9-year gap between the projects and the difference of how you see action on your films?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot on Spy because I learned that mayhem, for mayhem's sake, doesn't work for a comedy film. It's like I always say, I'm watching an action movie with all this great action and stuff, and I'll look over, my wife just like looking on her phone. I'm like, how can you miss all this stuff? She's like, I'm bored because there's no character stuff happening. She's not invested in these people. It's just a lot of fighting and cars chasing around. So you learn that, like, if you're doing action in these movies, it has to advance the story in a way that it's character based, and then it's leading towards jokes, or it's just moving the story forward in a very compelling way. So with this one, I knew it was going to be a lot of comedy action for comedy action's sake.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure it was going to be really funny and engaging, so that it wasn't just like I don't know. The Jackie Chan movies work so well because even if it's just a big fight scene that's just out of control, you're so worried for him the whole time, because he always looks like he's freaking out and he's in a panic. So I knew that was going to be the key to this, is when we're going to get caught in these things, you're just going to be like, oh my God, like if that was me, I wouldn't know what to do with, like, everywhere I turn, somebody else is coming at me and I'm not a skilled fighter or anything. So I knew that I could get a little more mayhem, quote unquote, than I would normally do, because the mayhem is so character based and you're so invested in this character.
That's what I mean. Going back to Jackie Chan as well, the thing about his movie, I don't think it's talked about an awful lot. I think Jackie Chan's a really good actor.
He really totally is.
In the midst of it all, that the action clearly superb, but you don't buy it unless you've got the actor. So I'm leaving a great big open goal there for you to talk about your actors and these leads and what they bring outside of the action to it to make it work for you.
Well, they bring so much heart and humanity to these characters, and that's why I love these characters on the page, and I really love them going through these two actors who I hired. Nora is just a very open person. She's that person you invest in because she is the audience. She's not intimidating. She seems like your best friend. She seems like somebody you want to hang out with. And so you're immediately kind of invest in her. And then I like in the movie, we kind of meet her when she's defending somebody in a very kind of fun way. Then you're like, oh, she's a good person. Like, she's standing up for this little girl whose father is really mean on the bus. But then again, I didn't know if she was going to be able to pull off the action part of it.
Yeah.
And if she was going to pull it off, she's just going to be kind of just so concentrating on doing the moves that she wasn't going to be able to bring her comedy to it. But she turned out to be so good at being in over her head and expressing it through the way she's yelling, or the way she's, oh shit, or the way she'll like, saying these jokes that we feed to her, like, don't, when she, like, the dojo guy, she has to like hug him so he won't kill her because he can't get his hands on her. And she's like, don't let go. I'm used, we're bonding. You can't kill me now. All these things she was able to throw in. So it made it more human and more relatable. And then John brought the sweetness to that character, which would in any other movie would have been like, Rambo coming in, who's like, I'll protect you, and just kind of machismo and all this. He's just this kind of big nerdy guy who wears a suit, because he wants to look his best because he's at his job, and he doesn't want to hurt anybody. The fact that he's going to, if he's going to throw somebody out of a car who's trying to kill him and her, he's going to put a helmet on them first and throw them out. Nora's like, well, why'd you do that? And he goes like, I'm not going to throw somebody out of a moving car without a helmet. I'm not a monster. And you go like, now I care about this guy because he's not just kicking ass because he wants to. He's doing the bare minimum that he has to do to get people away from her without trying to hurt them. And so, how do you not love a character like that?
In the midst of that, though, you did a Rambo impression, and now I think that should be your next film.
There you go. That's me.
I think that should be your Horizon or Megalopolis or something like that. That should be your
I want to go to a very male-oriented.
I think so. I think that perfectly encapsulates where your career your career's been over that.
Literally my kryptonite. Exactly.
You clearly, you sent message during the making of this as well. You clearly had a ball making this. I'm just wondering, just in terms of the contrast, you come off in the School for Good and Evil, a 3 year production that was a lot more technical. I think I can say that and a lot fewer pages per day, I would imagine. Was there a little bit of just like uncorking yourself a little bit and just being able to attack this?
No, I was back to my happy place, which is, we've got a lot of alt jokes. We're going to try this. We're going to try that. We throw stuff at the wall. Now that I didn't even do that on the School for Good and Evil. I mean, I tried to keep the looseness there, and everybody came willing to play. But this, I knew. Again, we weren't tied to source material that had such a big fan base of readers who were going to be looking for those cracks and stuff. This is it's original IP, it's a new idea, which is the greatest thing in the world to get to make, it's hard to get to make.
Steady on.
I'm telling you, my friend. Yep, I know. So here we are. And now we've created this thing that I would love for this to have more sequels, because I think that it's such a funny idea that could could hold more stories in a way that a lot of other movies that I've done.
How many Purge films are there? I mean,
exactly.
I mean, Jackpot
and I love them all.
has that. In fact, you could rename the sequels after other games by the publisher of Grand Theft Auto and just see how many legal letters you get. That would work. The whole thing could be set up just to troll video game companies.
That's, bring it on. I'm all set for
the Call of Duty, call it that or something like that. It'll be fine. It'll be no problem at all.
Nice.
I suspect our time is edging to an end, and I did wonder about if I could come up with some really intelligent, clever way to trap you with a question. You've done so many of these interviews, you'll see all these coming. So I just thought, sod it. Where's Spy 2?
It's sitting on IMDb, saying that we're doing it. There's no plans right now, so. But you never know. I don't know. But then I go like, now it's almost been 10 years now. So is the freshness date past its due? I don't know.
By the same, but I mean, what we just seen? We just seen Twisters, which is 35 years or something, 25 after the original. Twisters is further away, isn't it, from Twister than Psycho 2 was from Psycho. I don't think time is the issue.
I think sometimes you got to wait really long or not much time at all. I think there's a middle point where you're like, I don't know. But I would love to do it. I kind of have the story for it, or at least the bones of the story for it. But I don't know. Nobody's really brought it up. There was talk at one point,
every
possibly.
time.
There you go. Perfect.
Every time.
There you go. Well, there was early talk at one point. I mean, so embryonic about possibly doing it as a TV series, but I'm like, I don't think it's a TV series. I think, like the Bond movies, like they're fun events,
And sadly, just as you're about to give me the Spy 2 and Spy 3 exclusive, Paul Feig, our time looks like it's come to an end. So I've deliberately gone spoiler-free on Jackpot, but huge congratulations on the film. Looking forward to A Simple Favor 2 and look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon. You are the best, mate. Thank you. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
And that was my conversation with Paul Feig, the director of Jackpot, which is available for viewing now on the Prime Video service. It also brings to an end my latest episode of Film Stories. Thank you, as always, for listening, and thank you for your time. If I've not bored you completely, you can find more from me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Simon Brew. I think I'm on Threads now as well, simon.brew, but I'm trying to work all that out. Film Stories is on Twitter and Blue Sky at Film Stories. It's on Instagram and Threads. Good Lord, this is confusing. At Film Stories Magazine UK, youtube.com/Film Stories, facebook.com/Film Stories Online. And then if you go to store.filmstories.co.uk, the latest issue of Film Stories and Film Junior print magazines created independently here in the UK, they're up for sale. Issue 51 of Film Stories leads with Alice Lowe and the brilliant Time Stalker. We are the only film magazine in the world to put that on our front cover. I'm very, very proud to do so. All available now, store.filmstories.co.uk. I'm still technically on the summer break from the main Film Stories podcast. That's coming back in a week or two, possibly 3. But there are 1 or 2 other bits on the way as well. Until then, the main thing, as always, you all look after yourselves. You all take care. I will be back soon with some more Film Stories. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.